This is a Fonzie Studio podcast. Welcome to Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and every week I'll share with you a tale and ancient wisdom of the native tribes of North America. I'll be joined by my cats, Dawa and Fonzie, who will undoubtedly make their presence known at some point, so I might as well just list them as co-hosts. We hope you'll enjoy the tales and wisdom, raise your vibration, and enrich your life with us every week. Welcome, friends. Welcome to the 38th episode of Tales from the First Nations. I'm your host, Jay Idle. Today I wanted to reach back and share another story about the Windigo. We talked about the Windigo once back in episode 23. It's a horrible beast that fed off our worst instincts towards greed and cruelty. Now, if you didn't hear that episode, I want to put a little warning here for you, because if you're listening with small children, it might be a little scary for them. So perhaps you should listen to it through and make a decision as to whether you think it's appropriate for your kids to hear. It is not gruesome, but it is a little scary. So I just want to put that out there as a little warning for you. Now, the Windigo, if you have forgotten, is a malevolent spirit from the Algonquin folklore, representing the insatiable greed, hunger, and the loss of humanity that can overtake us if we are weak and listen to our base urges. It's a story that serves as a cautionary tale against the dangers of giving in to greed and despair. There was once a man known throughout his village, not for his kindness or generosity, but for his insatiable greed. No matter how much food, land, or wealth he possessed, it was never enough to satisfy him. He hoarded all he could, demanding more and more from his neighbors, and taking whatever he could lay his hands on. The villagers, growing weary of his endless greed, finally cast him out into the wilderness, hoping that isolation would teach him a lesson. The man wandered through the darkness, out in the forest, cursing the villagers for their cruelty. "I'll show them," he muttered, his eyes glinting with malice. "I'll find more food, more gold, and more power than they could ever dream of. They'll beg me to return." His obsession drove him deeper into the woods, far beyond the reach of familiar paths, and into the heart of the wild, where few dared to go. As he stumbled through the underbrush, a strange figure appeared before him. A tall, skeletal creature with skin stretched tight over its bones, glowing eyes that burned with a terrible hunger, and a mouth filled with rows of sharp, yellowed teeth. The man, consumed by his thoughts of wealth and power, did not recognize the danger before him. He stared defiantly at the creature, unaware that he stood in the presence of the Windigo. "Why do you wander alone in these woods, human?" The Windigo rasped, its voice a harsh whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "What is it that you seek?" The man, his heart hardened by greed, sneered at the creature. "I seek food, gold, and power," he shouted, "more than anyone else has ever had." The Windigo's eyes narrowed, its lips curling into a twisted grin. "Is that all?" it murmured softly. "Very well. I can give you everything you desire, but there is a price." It raised one clawed hand, the fingers impossibly long and sharp, and hovered it over the man's chest. "I don't care about the price," the man snarled, his desires blinding him to the danger. "Give me what I want now!" The Windigo chuckled, a low, chilling sound that echoed through the forest. "Then you shall have it all," it whispered. With a sudden, swift motion, the Windigo pressed its hand against the man's chest. A searing pain shot through him, and his body began to change. The man screamed as his skin tightened and pulled over his bones. His fingers lengthened into gnarled claws, and his mouth stretched wide, filled with sharp, jagged teeth. His eyes, once full of greed, now glowed with an insatiable hunger, a terrible craving deep and darker than anything that he had ever felt before. It consumed him. It was a hunger that could never be satisfied, no matter how much he ate or took. What is happening to me?" the man cried out, his voice twisted and monstrous. He looked down at his hands, now grotesque and clawed, and his heart filled with horror and despair. "You wanted more, and now you have more," the Windigo said softly, circling the man. "More hunger, more greed, more pain. You are now one of us, a Windigo." The creature's voice, once taunting, turned cold. "You will roam these woods forever, driven by your unending desire, never to be satisfied. You will feed on the flesh of the living, for that is the only thing that will dull your hunger, but it will never be enough." The man's screams echoed through the dark forest as his transformation completed. When it was over, he was no longer human, but a twisted, emaciated creature, doomed to wander the woods in search of flesh to fill his endless hunger. The Windigo, its work done, vanished into the shadows, leaving the newly transformed creature alone in the cold, silent woods. From that day on, the people of the village spoke in hushed tones of the monstrous figure that lurked in the depths of the forest, a creature, once human, now known only as the greedy Windigo. They warned their children and grandchildren never to let greed take hold of their hearts, for fear that they too would be cursed to wander the woods as a Windigo, forever starving, forever searching, and forever lost to the darkness within. And whenever the villagers heard a chilling cry carried by the wind, they knew it was the greedy Windigo, a reminder of the man who had once lived among them, now a creature driven mad by the very greed that had consumed him in life and transformed him into a monster in death. Some say that it is a curse to live in interesting times, but it's really hard to know for sure. Many people remember the good old days as being better than things are today. However, I'm sure that people have felt that way in every generation, watching the world change and evolve from what they were accustomed to in their youth. We can only hope that as things change and evolve, the presence of the greedy Windigo will eventually fade away and leave behind a happier, gentler, and kinder society for us to live in. It is with respect and gratitude that I thank you for joining me on my journey and on this podcast. I wish you well and look forward to sharing another story with you next week. Go in peace, return in peace, and may you be well. Our main story today came from thesingingscoutmaster.com. There's a lot of other great stories and legends on Jaguar Bird on YouTube. Check out their channel. Really good stuff. And of course, you can join me here next week for another story on Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and I'll talk to you next time. The beautiful music you're listening to right now was composed by my dear friend Scott Brocklesby, and our podcast image was provided by Mark Lawton. We shall see you next time. All right, that's it. How we do, Dawa? Phones? Excellent. Then I'll share it.